Hello and welcome to Inside the Folder, a podcast that takes a look at a series of shorts I created called the Steele Dossiers. I am your host, Francesco Di Francesco. Today's podcast is about a legend of a lost species, a link between man and beast. For centuries, he lived in hiding. Yes, this podcast is about Bigfoot. Well, it's actually about the first episode of the Steele Dossiers, the first short, I should say, of the Steele Dossiers, which is called The Call of Bigfoot. However, before I get into the actual short itself, let me do a little brief sort of synopsis, not synopsis, but more of a little kind of dip your toe in the water, talking about the myth, the legend, the folklore of Bigfoot. There is many articles, newspapers, videos, extensive research done on Bigfoot. What I'm going to do is just scratch the surface, dip the toe in the water of everything Bigfoot, because if I were to cover it, this would be, I would say, a who knows how long of a podcast. So I'm just gonna scratch the surface, so to speak, about the Bigfoot lore, and then hopefully, if you are interested, you can dive in more. Because when you type in Bigfoot, everything comes up, and when I say everything, I mean everything. All right. So Bigfoot, also commonly referred to as Sasquatch, which Sasquatch comes from the Salish Saskets, I hope I pronounced that right, meaning wild man. Bigfoot is a large, hairy, human-like creature who lives in the northwestern United States and western Canada. Bigfoot is the North American counterpart of the Himalayan region's mythical monster, the abominable snowman, which is also known as the Yeti. However, in many different regions throughout the world, they have their variations of a large, hairy, human-like creature. Here's a little interesting one. In the Vietnam War, there was what was referred to as rock apes, where the military will be in the thick of the jungle, and all of a sudden rocks would be thrown at them. And when they looked, they saw that the people throwing them at them were large, hairy, and human-like. So you have the rock apes in like the Vietnam kind of area, and in Australia it's known as the Yowie, and then so forth in different regions all over the world. There has been a vast number of visual sightings, alleged photographs, filmings, hair samples, just a wide range of evidence, I'll say, that have contributed to the legend of Bigfoot. However, a British explorer by the name of David Thompson is sometimes credited with the first discovery of Sasquatch footprints in 1811. However, pre-1800s Native American and indigenous Canadian folklore includes tales of animalistic hairy men stealing food and supplies. So who knows So who knows? I'm going to do another shot. So who knows how far back Bigfoot actually goes with the stories and the tales? I mean, it's pretty extensive. It could go even further than, who knows, probably the 1500s, but the earliest, it predates the 1800s. The best evidence, I would say, and I think a lot of Bigfoot enthusiasts would agree, so far, I'll say the best evidence is what is known as the Patterson-Gimlin film. This is famous footage. I'm sure everybody's seen it. It has been parodied and everything. This footage was shot in 1967 in Northern California, and on frame 352 is alleged to depict a female Bigfoot. Till this day, it has been subjected to many attempts to authenticate or debunk it, and it hasn't done either. No one can prove it, and no one can debunk it. However, it is kind of interesting because it is a female Bigfoot, and there are male Bigfoots, so there has to be children Bigfoot somewhere. There's like a whole Bigfoot family. That would be interesting to see. But moving on. Like many other mythical creatures, Bigfoot does have a large presence in pop culture, ranging from films such as Harry and the Hendersons, The Missing Link, two films I would highly suggest taking a look at. I enjoy both of them. Harry and the Hendersons is more of a they're both comedies, but Harry and the Henderson is a 1980s live action film, and The Missing Link is a 2019 stop motion film. Both great, both good about Bigfoot there. There's been Bigfoot's been in TV, there's toys, music, mascots, and here's something that I discovered. There's even a theater musical called Sasquatched. I haven't seen it. I would love to see this. This would be one of those. I'm not a big musical person, but this is one of those shows that I would go and see. I think that sums it up for Bigfoot, for like just scratching the surface. Like I said, there's many different everything about Bigfoot. So if you want to dive in more, I highly suggest diving into it. This is just a little kind of Kickstarter if you are interested, and how the myth. If you are interested in where the myth is at this point, or the folklore, or like any other, there's been many footages. There are a lot of footages that I saw where you see like an ape-like creature, and yeah, it's just extensive. So I hope I summed it up quite well for everybody listening. And before I get into the short, I'm gonna take this to a little sort of ad break. So here's the ad break.
Is caffeine not providing the same punch as it used to? Maybe you need to feel a little bit more elite, but not too elite. Get the Almost Elite Films mug.
Alrighty, welcome back. So now I'm going to get into the first episode. I don't like calling these episodes, so let me correct myself. The first short in the Steele Dossiers series, which is called The Call of Bigfoot. So the short starts off with the Steele Dossier intro video, which I went over in the first podcast. If you want to listen to that, and I spoke like Bigfoot, me do this. No. If you want to check out the first podcast, I go in depth about the intro, filming that intro. Check it out if you are interested. Then it goes into the title card of the short itself. Now, each short has a title card and is unique to the short film. I have in the title card, I have a silhouette that I think would work best, that would depict the short, along with matching font. So, for instance, if you look at the Bigfoot title card, there's a silhouette of Bigfoot on the left, and then the font kind of looks Bigfooty. So I do that in all the episodes, in all the shorts of the Steele Dossiers currently, and obviously it fits each short that I do it on. Along with in season 1, I did have a voiceover where I would say tonight's episode, and then say the title of the short. And then after season 1 was done, I didn't like that because, like I said, I didn't want to call these episodes. So in season 2, I actually changed it to in season 2, I do say tonight's case file, and then I say the name that way. I find it better saying it tonight's case file as opposed to tonight's episode, because it kind of makes it more case file-y, like you're actually opening up one of Steele's folders. As well, these title cards are influenced by classic black and white films. They would have just a title card where it's just like a regular background with an image over top and like just the font. And that's kind of referencing those films. And that's about it. I can't really talk much about those title cards. They just change. That's all it is. Once it gets to season 2, I'll say this is the first short where I say tonight's case file. But once I get there, I'll mention it. But for now, it's just the Call of Bigfoot. And as I mentioned in the previous podcast, I had a Bigfoot costume, and I wanted to use it. and I didn't want to make a typical On the Hunt for Bigfoot or horror film with Bigfoot as the monster. I wanted to put a twist on it, and I thought, why not have a film noir detective that goes on the hunt for the supernatural, for the science fiction, and he looks for Bigfoot. And that's where everything kind of clicked together. And I also kind of wanted to have a bit of humor to it. So that's why it's called the Call of Bigfoot, simply because Bigfoot has a distinct sort of yell. You know what? Maybe I'll put it in here if I have the sound effect. So here's the yell. If it's just blank and you don't hear anything, that means I lost the sound effect. But he kind of has a distinct yell, and I thought it'd be interesting to call it the Call of Bigfoot, and then have a little spin on that in the episode itself, where it's not Bigfoot's actual voice coming out. He actually, a little spoiler alert here, he actually calls me over the phone and plays a prank with Arthur Steele. But I knew in order to bring Bigfoot to life, I needed to do two things, which was have a footprint in the ground of Bigfoot, a Bigfoot footprint, and then a molding of that footprint. So how do I want to do this? So yeah, okay, I need those two things: Bigfoot's footprint, and then the molding of the cast of the footprint to bring this series, this little short, to life. And my sister's an artist, and what we did is when we went to the location to film, where Steele discovers the footprint in the ground, my sister actually went on the ground and did a foot in the ground. What's hilarious is we didn't bring any sort of like shovels or equipment to use to make that foot. So my sister just grabbed a stick that she could find around and kind of just marked it out and dug up a little bit of the dirt. We did the two of the footprints. That way it looks like it was walking. Looking back on it, I was thinking, you know what? Bigfoot his foot wouldn't have moved like the twigs out of the way. It would have crushed him. But again, we didn't have equipment, so we just moved the twigs out of the way and made the foot that way. And then for the molding of the cast, we obviously didn't do the mold direct from the ground. My sister, we just got clay from the dollar store. And keep in mind, this is cheap clay. And my sister just molded the foot, just a giant foot, out of the clay that we got. Unfortunately, that footprint prop didn't survive, because, like I said, dollar store clay. If you want something to survive, don't get dollar store clay, because it was cracking up. You can even see it in the short film itself, that the foot was actually sort of starting to break apart. And that was like at least 2 days after it dried, so it was starting to break apart. So I quickly had to film this before like one of the toes fell apart, or like it just broke in half. So that's why you see, when I'm holding it very delicately. I can't say delicately. Oh, look, there it is again. Maybe I should have that in every episode, where I'm trying to say a word, it doesn't come out, then it comes out. Anyways, moving on. So those are the two props I needed. Not props, but the two things I needed to bring Bigfoot to life. If you look at the desk, I know I touched upon the desk in the first episode, but I said I'm going to bring this up. If you look at the desk, on the desk, there is also a gun that Arthur Steele never uses. It just sits there. There's his black book, which actually has drawings in it. And in this short, you actually see him writing in his black book as well. There's other Easter eggs in there, because like I said, my sister is an artist. I had her draw like a proton pack in there, and I had her draw the gates of Gozer, because I love Ghostbusters. There's a reference in there. You don't see it in this short, and you don't see it yet in any of the shorts that I've done, but it could eventually pop up. And right beside Steele is his trusty old detective hat. So that's what's on the desk. I will say, here's a little funny tidbit. So I knew film noir, you had to have some sort of alcohol. The detective has to be drinking some sort of alcohol. And in real life, I don't drink. I don't actually drink. But what I do pull out in this episode, because I do a joke of, I was starting to, I do the joke in the short where I say, I was gonna work on the case of the crystal skull, because the crystal skulls is an actual thing. There's about 12 or 13 of them, and so far I think there's only about 10 that have been found. But Dan Aykroyd made a vodka called the Crystal Skull, and I did that joke. I was gonna start the case of the Crystal Skull and pull out the vodka, and I was gonna start pouring it into a glass. But I didn't, simply because, like I said, I don't drink, and that is actual alcohol. That's an actual Crystal Skull vodka bottle from when it first originally came out. I had that since 2010, 2011. And I've never opened it, and it's hilarious. There's a story that goes with it, because at the time you couldn't get it in Canada because the bottle's in the shape of human remains. It's a skull. And I remember one of my uncles was going to go down to the States, and he goes, "Oh, you want anything?" I said, "Yeah, can you bring me back one of these bottles?" Because, I'm a fan of Dan Aykroyd's, and I went, "Oh, I'm a fan of Dan Aykroyd's and a fan of the supernatural science fiction, and it's a crystal skull. It's a double win." So I said, "Yeah, bring me one back." And he goes, "Okay, when I go, I'll bring you one." Over time, he didn't go, and then they eventually brought it to Canada. The vodka, they actually started selling it here in stores. Well, not all the stores, but the liquor store. And when I saw it, I bought it right away in the original box and everything. And then, because my uncle didn't know, he came back from the States and he bought one for me as well. So I actually have two that have never been opened since 2010, 2011. And I used it as a prop. I go about to open the bottle in this short, but then I'm stopped quickly because an envelope that says Bigfoot on it lands on Steele's desk. This is the first of many times where you will see my sister's arm make an appearance in the shorts. She eventually does a character. I'm not going to say when. She'll probably be on one of these episodes when the character comes up. But yeah, it stops me from opening the bottle. So that bottle is still fresh. And don't worry, there was no tape on any of the boxes itself. So it's a win-win situation there. Anyways, so the envelope lands on the desk. And inside is a makeshift map. I didn't have any kind of old school looking map. Looking back on it again, I should have burned the edges, burned it to make it look a little more time period-y or exciting, but it wasn't too much focus on the map. It was just to say Bigfoot's in Keystone Gardens. And Keystone Gardens there is actually a piece of the Beltline Trail, which is here in Toronto. And where I am, it's a piece that's closer to my house here. And where I am is just off, it's just like the bush off the main path. On one side is the main path, which sometimes we had to cut because people were walking by or a cyclist would go by. And on the other side is houses and a school. And luckily, I knew right away, too, I don't want any sound. I can always just dub the sound over with background noise, because there was kids playing basketball. And all you hear is hey, shoot the ball and all that stuff. So that was kind of interesting and fun to do because it's off the path. Some people were looking what's going on. This short is the introduction of Arthur Steele's most prized gun, which he's named Sally. Now, Sally's hilarious because I work at an escape game. And in these escape games, I always name something Sally, or I have a girlfriend named Sally, which I have to have a date, which is why we need to escape. But yeah, so I always bring up Sally, and I thought it'd be great fun little reference for me to name my gun Sally, and name the Arthur Steele to name his gun Sally, and that's why the gun's named Sally, and I just find it hilarious. So, on the third call of the Call of Bigfoot here, I say Listen here, you Daisy, keep on calling me and they're going to be picking iron out of your liver. This is actually a quote, not, I wouldn't say word per word, but this is actually a little reference to the 1941 The Maltese Falcon, where the character by the name of William Cook says, keep on riding me and they're going to be picking iron out of your liver. And I just thought that was a great line to say, especially after the third call where, somebody's been prank calling Arthur Steele and he needs to, on the third time lay down the law, and that's what he does. And then the ending, which is like I mentioned before in the first podcast, was the first scene I ever filmed for this series. I actually found it actually works, phone booth that's around my area, and I went in and I filmed it. And I actually filmed at this phone booth before for the intro, one of the intro scenes, one of the intro bits for Enchanted Mafia, Dark City. It's actually the same payphone that I used. And so I did a Bigfoot short film, but the only thing in here that you see of Bigfoot is his hand. And I thought about that, and I went, do I show the whole costume or do I just use like a piece? Because then I went, well, if I'm in the bush near a path and there's people walking around and they see some guy dressed up as Bigfoot, like they're gonna, like, what's going on here, and get stopped and all this kind of thing. And I didn't want that. So I went, how can I film around that but still have Bigfoot and keep the mystery of Bigfoot as well? And I went, you know what? It has to be the phone call where you see just his hand drop the phone down and he laughs. That's actually my laugh. That's just dubbed with effects to make it sound a little bit more like monstrous. And that's what I did with Bigfoot. And to be quite honest, this will probably not be the last time you hear about Bigfoot in this series. I don't know when Bigfoot would come back, but I always like to bring back other characters in this series to make it a little bit more fun. That's about it for this sort of first episode. What else am I going to get in detail with for this? My sister recorded. I will say, with the recordings of everything, I shot everything in black and white because I like it all in black and white. And I've been using my cell phone, which is just a Galaxy 10E. I think it's a Galaxy 10E, and I've just been using that, and it works wonders. I think the shots I've gotten and everything I've loved, and everything I do on this series it's the resources I have and how can I utilize them, as opposed to going, I want to do this, now I need to buy that. No, I like doing, what resources do I have? Maybe there might be one thing I need to get, one or two things for specific reasons, but that's about it. That's about it for the Call of Bigfoot. So now it goes into the end credits, and the end credits still has the title cards, and it just flashes over, starring blah blah blah, all the credits. But I wanted to do a little fun credits for Arthur Steele, for the Steele Dossiers, and then this one you actually see it where Bigfoot is as himself. Bigfoot plays himself, where technically it was me playing myself. Here's a little tidbit, just a little bit behind the scenes stuff. When we were filming the phone booth scene, my sister found a little faint, so she had to sit down. So we stayed in that area. She sat down for a good 30 to 40 minutes, and I made sure she didn't pass out. But then she eventually felt a little better, and then we made it on our way. But getting back to the credits here, I just wanted to do a little bit of fun stuff. You'll see in other shorts, I do play around with the credits in other ones, and then it ends off with because it was my sister and I starting this. We kind of wanted to have our own sort of little film studio sort of thing, so we named it Frank Diana Fun Studios. She wants to call it Frank Diana Film Studios, but I think Frank Diana Fun Studios is a little bit more fun, because we had fun doing it, and we just took the initials FDF Studios, and that was it. I just made a little short logo for it, and that was that. That's about it. I'll say that's about it for this podcast. That's about it for the Call of Bigfoot. I hope you enjoyed this this second episode. Wherever you're listening to this, wherever you're watching this, feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, join, smile. Do a smile. My soul will feel a smile. Leave a comment. All those kind of fun things. And before I go off, and before I sign off, as Bigfoot would say, believe in yourself, especially when no one else will.